Hi there, welcome back to Fastcuts. The last episode showed how Jeff became a celebrity. Let's see what will happen in the last episode of this series. This episode begins by showing a house in Chicago City. It is the year 1977. Two people get down from a van and head home. The one who seems old is John Wayne. The two people are going to John's home. The young boy seen with him is searching for a job. He gets inside the house. The house was too stinky. The boy asks John, "What is that smell?" John says, "That could be some dead rat." Then John offers a beer to that boy. The boy asks, "What is this?" John replies, "This is a kind of cola. You can drink it fearlessly." Then the boy drinks it and sits on the sofa. The boy starts feeling dizzy. John mixed a drug in that beer. When the boy was unconscious, John tied the boy's hands. Suddenly the boy hits John. Then a fight happens there. Eventually, John takes a vessel and hits it on the boy's head. The boy falls as he got hit. Then John drags him to the bathroom and kills him by suffocating him under the water. You would be thinking, what just happened here? This will be explained later in the story. The next scene is the year 1994. 3 years after Jeff got arrested, Glenda sees the news at her office. The news was, the boy's dead body was being taken outside John's house. The John we saw earlier is an American serial killer who brutally killed 33 people. The reason why this 1977 news is aired now is that John Wayne himself had given an appeal for a death sentence for him. The court granted that. Next month is his death sentence. That is why this news is showing now. A co-worker of Glenda was also watching that news. When the other lady says, there wouldn't be anybody brutal like him, Glenda says back, "Yes there is." The co-worker asks, "Who is that?" Glenda replies, "My neighbor. He killed 17 people. But the way he dissected them was really strange. He used to even enjoy the smell that came from those decomposed bodies in his rooms. There is no one as brutal as him." Jeff is eating in the jail canteen in the next scene. Another man came and sat with him, but as the space he came and sat had a plate of food there, his dress got all stained. He becomes angry and asks, "Who put this plate over here?" Jeff says, "I'm sorry. My friend used to sit there. I placed the plate there for him." The other man stood up and leaves fiercely. Jeff used to talk about this non-existent friend he has and does weird things. That was Jeff's time killer in jail. Everybody sees and becomes angry about what Jeff just did, including a black man whose name was Christopher. From the next day onwards, Christopher starts observing Jeff. Jeff continues to do his so-called funny things. The next day he places another plate on a seat and checks whether someone comes and sits on it. Christopher saw what Jeff did. He took that plate and goes near Jeff. Christopher angrily says, "What is your real intention behind all these deeds?" Jeff replies, "I do that for fun. We need some time to pass, don't we?" Christopher raised his voice and says, "All this is just for fun. Do we all look like a joke to you?" Hearing Christopher, the police approach them and take away Christopher. Christopher is standing in the library. In the next scene, Christopher asks the librarian there, "What crime did Jeff do to come here?" The librarian replies, "Sorry Christopher. We cannot reveal the details of other prisoners here." Christopher begs, "Please ma'am. Please tell me. I won't say it to anybody else. I'm getting pissed off by his behavior here. It's so mentally disturbing." Thus librarian gives him articles related to Jeff's crimes. Christopher reads all those and becomes angry at Jeff and sad about the victims. The next day, Jeff is cleaning the jail. Meanwhile, an interview was airing on TV. Jeff notices what John was saying. John in his interview says, "I have killed many and ended up in jail. I joined a convention there, and now I'm a completely transformed man. All I think about is God now. When I look back at my deeds, I can't even forgive myself. So I'm deciding to end my life. I believe that the Almighty God will forgive me and allow me into heaven." Jeff sees that and feels like living ahead in a more good way, instead deciding to die like John. Jeff then goes and meets a bishop there in jail. Jeff says to the bishop, "Father, I want to talk to you." Then both of them go to another place to talk. Jeff says, John killed many, and now he had decided to end his life, and believes that he will go to heaven. Is that true? Even after doing all that, will God still forgive him and allow him in heaven? Bishop asks Jeff, "Are you here to talk about him or yourself?" Jeff didn't reply. Bishop continues saying, "Don't you know about Jesus Christ? Despite the people who he helped, crucified him for nothing, God above forgave them all. If God forgave them for killing his son, why wouldn't he forgive you? He will forgive you, only if you decide to be a good man from here onwards." Jeff then wanted to become a good person. Glenda is going to a church in the next scene. The father there preaches about forgiveness. Glenda goes and talks to the father after his preaching. She says, "Didn't you talk about forgiveness back there? I can't still forgive Jeffrey Dahmer after all he did and all the pain that I had to suffer because of him. So what should I do now?" The father says, "When you think about him and feel like crying, you should cry out, or if you feel angry thinking about him, then you should be angry. You should express all your emotions until you could forgive him. It might take weeks, months, or years, but one day finally, you will forget what he did to you. You will forgive him. Lionel goes to see Jeff in jail in the next scene. He asks Jeff about his life inside jail. Jeff jokingly says, "Sometimes I feel upset because they don't provide alcohol here." Then he asks about his book. Lionel says, "A problem arose in the name of that book. There is a case going on over its profit. But yeah, people still read it." Jeff asked Dad, "I've changed a lot. I wish to be a bishop now. What's your take on that?" Lionel feels happy hearing that, and says, "Are you serious? Do you want to be a bishop? I knew you would change." Jeff sincerely apologizes to Lionel and says, "I have brought you a lot of problems. You have become ashamed of me. Will you ever forgive me for all that?" Lionel replies, "I would, son. Definitely. You are my son." Glenda goes to a marriage function in the next scene. It was Connor's older brother's marriage party. His father was sitting there. Glenda goes and sits beside him. She feels like he is still upset about Connor's demise. Glenda says to him, "You should not remain sad about Connor's demise anymore. You should forget everything. Don't remain sad like this." He says, "Every day I forget everything Jeff did, but when it is the next day morning, I recall what Jeff did. When I'm reminded about Jeff, I feel like killing him." Glenda says, "You are right. I feel the same way. After his storybook got published, he became a celebrity. We should do something about that." Yes, Jeff is now a celebrity. This same discussion is going on in Tony's home too. One of her daughters says, he has become a superhero after his book got published. Their mother says, "It is true. I believe that the book will show others how cruel he is, but instead, the readers themselves had made him a hero. We should file a case against this, or else people will start killing others to become famous or become celebrities." A bishop goes to Jeff's jail in the next scene. It's the day Jeff is going to be christened as a bishop. John Wayne's death sentence is going to happen that same day. The bishop is shown a tank where Jeff has to be christened. Jeff is called there. At the same time, John Wayne is lying on a bed, waiting for his death. Jeff dresses up and gets ready to be christened. Meanwhile, doctors inject sodium in high amounts into John's nerves. At this time, Christopher is praying and crying in his cell saying, "What should I do about Jeff? The one who brutally killed a lot is going to be christened. What should I do to him?" John dies due to an overdose of sodium. Painless death was John's death sentence. Jeff here stood up after his christening. Now Jeff has the power to become a bishop, and for that he must try hard. Christopher ends his prayer. He says, "I will do as you say, my lord." The next scene will show what Christopher had in his mind to do. Jeff is lying inside his cell, reading a book in the next scene. Police came there and says time for work. Jeff goes to clean the jail gym. Along with Jeff, a person named Jesse would also clean the gym. The police go to Christopher's cell also to take him to work. It was his duty time also. He had to clean the gym too. He observes Jeff from the moment he came there. Jeff was looking back at Christopher too. Christopher goes to another room. Jeff asks Jesse, "Will you help me to clean the other room?" Jesse says, "Yeah, I will." Both of them leave. Jeff starts taking and cleaning things in the gym. After some time, the police leave. Jeff was alone now. Silence everywhere. Jeff suddenly hears a scream from the next room. It was Jesse's scream. Jeff stood there thinking about what happened to Jess. Christopher opens the door of that room with blood on his dress, implying he killed Jesse. He had an iron rod in his hand. We all would have understood why Christopher had that in his hand. Christopher was unable to reconcile with the fact that, despite Jeff killing 17 people brutally, he is still alive. But it is not understood why he killed Jesse. Christopher says to Jeff, "You killed a lot of people. Then you chopped them into pieces. You are living here happily. You should not be living like this. I will kill you the same way you killed others." Jeff becomes scared seeing him. Jeff tries to escape, but Christopher prevents and beats him up. He beats Jeff to death with the iron rod. Thus Jeff dies at the age of 34. Jeffrey Dahmer the monster is now dead forever. Lionel hears that Jeff is killed. Sherry and Lionel goes to the hospital quickly. Jeff's dead body is kept on a bed there. Lionel goes near Jeff's dead body and cries in the same way Jeff's victims' parents cried near their son's dead body. After some days, Joyce comes to the hospital and sees Lionel sitting there. After some time, Joyce and Lionel were called to the doctor's room. The doctor had called them before. The doctor says, "The thing is, we took your son's brain during the postmortem to study it, as it is different from other usual brains." Lionel is surprised by hearing that. Lionel asks the doctor, "So we did his funeral without his brain inside his body, isn't it?" Doctor replies, "Yes, we thought of informing you later about this." Joyce says, "If you could study his brain, It could be useful later in the future, right? I am totally fine with that. Lionel disagrees with Joyce and says, I won't let this happen, Joyce. I won't allow anybody to dissect my boy's brain. I will file a case against who took my son's brain for your studies without my permission. The doctor says, this study could be useful in many ways in the future. There could be some reason why Jeff killed people brutally. That could be found out. Lionel argues and starts leaving saying, I won't let you do this at any cost. I won't let you learn my son's brain. Nobody should know about how he lived. I won't agree to this at all. Joyce says, I'm supporting this because at least my son's brain will be left in this world. Doctor, you should take that for your studies. Let's face the consequences. Glenda and her grandson go shopping in the next scene. He says, I want candy. Glenda gives him candy and starts leaving. She notices Jeff's book on the shelf there and leaves without caring about that more. This indicates that everybody has started forgetting Jeff. In the next scene, the court's final judgment is shown. Even after studying a serial killer's brain, if people learn about it and do the same, it could end up being a problem. We shouldn't be letting the future know about such a serial killer's existence. This could even be a motivation for others to be like Jeff. So the court didn't let anybody study his brain and orders to dispose his brain. After the court's final judgment, Jeff's brain is taken to dispose of it in the fire. Thus Jeff's chapter ends there. In the next scene, Glenda goes to the village office. A lady officer comes and asks Glenda why she came there. Glenda says, didn't you demolish a residential building 3 years back and allowed to build a park there? The officer says, yes, you are right. But we haven't started any work there. Glenda says, I've told a lot of officers to build a memoriam instead. Why does not anybody listen to me? The officer says, ma'am, we don't see any benefit in doing that. Glenda replies, who said it doesn't benefit? It will be a motivation for others to not do such a crime. We should remember the victims. That is the justice we provide them. Glenda goes to the place where the residential building stood before. Now it is an open space. Glenda still believes that someday, a memoriam will rise in the memory of Jeff's victims. Then she leaves. This series about Jeffrey Dahmer the monster ends here. This series showed Jeff's life and the discrimination that existed against blacks in society. The director has succeeded in bringing black people's problems and politics through the series. This series video ends here, reminding people like Jeff, who still lives hiding from the main society, secretly killing other people, that your end will be also like Jeff's. The Jeffrey Dahmer series thus ends here. Hope every one of you had enjoyed it. Post your valuable opinions as comments. See you again soon. Until then, bye.